So I'm actually a pretty big reader, and one of my favorite books that I've read as of late is Jon Chu's newest memoir, Viewfinder. If you don't know Jon, he's an American filmmaker and director, and he's obviously one of my heroes because we met way back when at the Cannes Film Festival. I was doing some work for Ben Summit Entertainment, and he was doing a screening of Step Up 3D. I got to work the screening and got to interact and meet with him, and he was just the nicest guy. And a big thing for me was that he looked like me, and we kind of had the same vibe and interest from what I could gather. So I've always kind of kept tabs on him and his career. He's done some huge movies, Crazy Rich Asians, In the Heights, the upcoming Wicked movie. So when he announced this book, I was really excited to dive into it. And I want to share with you 3 creative lessons I took away from this book. Whether you're in filmmaking or any type of creative arts, I do definitely recommend it. So here are my 3 creative takeaways. Number 1, get a second meeting. Jon has this incredible moment where Steven Spielberg sees his student short film and wants to set a meeting with him. I mean, can you even imagine? Initially, it's supposed to be a phone call, but then Steven scraps that idea and they set an in-person meeting. So he and his film buddies are sitting around trying to figure out the strategy, what to do. And I thought his friend gave some of the best advice that I heard, and that is get a second meeting. And I think that's such a great takeaway. There's going to be times in your life, in your career, where you get that big meeting, that big interview, and the goal is not only to have a killer meeting, but also to do so well that there's another meeting. There's only so much ground you can cover, so get that second meeting. The creative pantry. Jon says, in my experience, creativity isn't a light with an on and off switch. It's a fire that needs constant feeding. And I think oftentimes when we go to sit down and make stuff, be creative, it feels like a switch, right? And something that I've been feeling the last year creatively with all the demands of life, being a new dad, but really seeing creativity as a fire where if my fire is going out, I need a log to put it back on. Jon's solution to this is a creative pantry, whether it's your Apple Notes, whatever, having some sort of place to store your creative ideas. Maybe it's just something quick you see on the street or when you're out, write it down, go back to it. And when you go back to it, that gives you some sort of structure to sit down and flesh out your ideas. The last is answer the question. Jon is super open and vulnerable in this book, which is quite refreshing given the success that he's had. There was also a time for him where he was a real young hotshot out of school, but didn't quite know what was going to happen next or what his future held. And I really like what he wrote. My dream of making big Hollywood movies and one day leading a creative company of my own really did seem like a childish fantasy at that point. In short, did I still believe in myself? The question was stark, but it wasn't simple. It turns out that if you want to change your life and reach a dream that seems beyond reaching, the question isn't something you only answer once. It's every morning. It's with you every night. The world is going to ask and keep asking it. And every time it does, you have to give the same answer. And that answer has to be true. There is no lying. So that's the question I'm going to keep answering for myself and work on this because it's not something that comes easy for me. And it's refreshing to see Jon have it not come easy for him, even though he's at the height of Hollywood. He just directed Wicked. I would really highly recommend this book if you want to be a filmmaker or want to be in creativity. I also did the Audible version, which I think there is power in hearing an artist share their story with their own voice. Jon reads it, so that's also another option. But Jon, thank you so much for sharing your story, your vulnerability, and paving new paths for Asian American voices out there. You're an inspiration. I hope this book inspires others as much as it inspired and encouraged me.